Hey everybody, you're going to get to hear another Santa story. Except for 3 years, I've always lived in Chicago, which means I grew up going to see Santa at Macy's. That was the place to go, and we would come in from the suburbs to see Santa at Macy's, and I was an only child, and I would be with my mom, and you know, for several years it was just so magical to see Santa at Macy's. Now, 3 years, I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I lived there in the mid-'80s, long before Breaking Bad, but it made perfect sense when I saw Breaking Bad. I was like, yeah, that's New Mexico. And for the 3 years that I lived there, I made my living doing singing telegrams. And doing singing telegrams, I wore a lot of different costumes. Everything, well, the best thing was that I used to wear a tuxedo, because I looked really good in that one back then. And but I would also wear like Muppet costumes and crazy caveman costumes and police and cops and all kinds of things like that. The place that I worked for was called Flim Flam Singing Telegram. The woman who owned it had desires and dreams that one day they would have an amusement park. The Flim Flam Amusement Park. It didn't happen. But she had the successful business, and what I would also do is at Christmas time, I would be hired by Flim Flam Singing Telegram to go be Santa Claus. And my hair was jet black then, and I was still very thin then, and I looked nothing like Santa. And I would put on the costume that I would have to wear and put on the extra padding in the thighs and in all of that, and then get in my Ford Escort to drive to the parties. And most of these people that I would do the Santa Claus for, I was hired to just sort of be there. And there was never like, I didn't come in with balloons, I didn't sing, I was just sort of the Santa in the corner. And it wasn't that fulfilling in a lot of ways. And I would drive all over New Mexico to go to these different places to be Santa for 15 minutes, because they were hired out at 15-minute chunks. And this one year, in 1986, I went to this Christmas party, and the house was humongous, and there were adults everywhere, and there was so much money in this place because of the amount of space, because of the quality of the house, because of the neighborhood that it was in. And I showed up, and I'm like, hi, I'm here to be Santa. And the father said, oh yeah, all right, yeah, my daughter Nancy, she's upstairs, just go up there. Now think about this. How different times were in 1985 or 86 that they would tell a guy dressed in a Santa costume, a stranger, to go up to their daughter's bedroom and be alone with her. It was different times. So I went upstairs, and this party was filled with adults, and there were so few kids. There were some teenagers, and they were drinking. There were so few kids. There was this girl. I opened the door to her bedroom, and her name is Nancy, and she's 7 years old, and she's by herself. And she's like, Santa! I'm like, ho, ho, ho! How are you, Nancy? What do you want from Santa? And she says, I want my parents to get back together. And inside I'm like, holy fuck. What do I say to this? I'm not Santa. I'm a 26-year-old guy from Chicago that trained at Second City. What the fuck is this? And she's looking at me. And all of a sudden, like, I get this Santa answer. And I look at her and I say, well, you know, Nancy, I didn't cross my arms, but I was like, you know, Nancy, as long as you are around, your parents will always be together through you. Because they will always care about you. And they will always love you. Now, what can my elves make you? And then she gave me a list of like 3 or 4 things. I said, no, keep adding it on. And I wrote it down. And I kept writing everything down. I said, a few more things. Yeah, great. And she's like, thank you so much, Santa. I'm like, you're very welcome. And I left and found the father in one of the parts of the room somewhere else, drink in his hand. How'd it go? I'm like, here's the list. You buy her everything on this list. And he looked at me and I said, you owe her. She asked that Santa put you two back together. And then I left. And near the end of the night, I pulled into a Circle K, which is like the southwest version of 7-Eleven. And, you know, I'm dressed in a Santa's outfit in a Circle K. And I make my way back to my car when a guy goes, hey, buddy, come here. Hey, could you just do me a favor? I'm like, maybe. He goes, my son, he's asleep right there in the pickup. That's my pickup truck over there. That's my son in there. If I give you $20, will you say hi to him as Santa? He's like, I can't really afford anything great for him this year. But if he could see Santa, that would be so cool. I'm like, first off, I looked to make sure there was a kid in there. Which there was. Boy, about the same age as Nancy, asleep. So I knocked on the window. He opens up his eyes, and he just starts screaming, Santa! Pretty much like what he was talking about him and his brothers were doing. Just screaming, Santa! So he rolled down his window, and he was so happy, and I just talked to him, and asked him what he wanted, and all that kind of Santa stuff you're supposed to say. And then after a while, I was like, well, I gotta go. And I was like, I can't get in my car. So I'm like, Santa's gonna go behind the Circle K because that's where my stuff is. Reindeer, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, bye. And as I left, his dad pressed the 20 in my hand, and I gave it back. Because most of those places, I was a Santa for hire. But in the eyes of Nancy and in the eyes of that boy, I was Santa fucking